The name of the show is The Way to Go. My name is Alan Bendich. I'm going to be your host, and tonight's guest is my father, Max Bendich. Welcome to the show, Pop.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, my son.
Right. So, as you know, the beginning of May, I started a job at a newspaper that when your father came to the United States from the Ukraine, right, he read. And almost all Jewish people read when they came to the United States. It's called The Forward, right? And it's a wonderful organization. This year, they're celebrating their 120th anniversary. They started publishing in 1897.
So, and I remember my father. My father was a shirt iron. He went to a union man, but he'd go to work, and when he came home, in his back pocket, rolled up a newspaper. What was that newspaper? The Forward.
Right.
And all the time, and he would sit down, my mother would listen a little, and we would talk about whatever it was, so that we should become comfortable. So the rest of the day we should not say what, and we learned how to, because of the Forward,
Right.
we learned how to be Jewish people, actually.
Right, and the Forward was written in Yiddish initially.
I'm telling you.
When it first started, when it first came out. And at the height of their circulation, which was, I guess, in the 30s or 40s, their circulation was about 250,000, and that's a lot. You know, I mean, that's a lot considering the whole population of Jewish people in the United States.
You know why? First of all, you put a number. It's almost unbelievable.
Right.
Why there were a few other papers. There was the Day,
right,
and the Morning Journal. I think there were more, but those two were so-called religious papers.
right.
And the Forward was the leading Jewish paper.
Right, and the thing that's interesting, I guess, now politically they're a little bit left of center. You know, they're known for that. You know, they're more progressive than some of the other Jewish. There are some other Jewish papers out, but politically, they weren't ultra, left wing, but they've always had a little bit leaning towards the left wing. Would you say that? Mm-hmm. A little bit.
Well, again, I'm sorry. I don't know.
Right.
But I know that the first thing people will tell you, what does the Forward say about this? And what does the Forward say about that?
But there were secular boards. I think there was a secular part of the Forward, meaning that it wasn't a religious newspaper. It was more of a. I mean, now what we're trying to do now, it's a magazine. It actually became a magazine in July last month, and I'm the vice president of finance and operations for the Forward. And it's interesting. They've gone from initially a Yiddish daily, then they started doing an English daily, I guess an English daily or English weekly, but it just recently changed from an English weekly newspaper to a monthly magazine, and and we're also on the web, theforward.com. It's
Look,
interesting.
You are in those things with the numbers and everything.
Right.
And usually the Jewish people came from Europe or from Israel.
Right.
No, I don't even know if they came from Israel.
Not in the beginning.
From Europe,
right.
in the beginning.
Right.
What is the percentage of those type of Jews at that time?
Like these kind of things, I don't know. I don't know what percentages. All I could say is that a lot of like Orthodox Jewish people aren't getting the newspaper because we're not really a religious organization. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure they're sneaking a look online because we have a website where our newspapers. Yeah. So in other words, we're not. Some of our political beliefs are. We're very. Eclectic. We're basically we're secular. We're not religious newspaper.
But still, it isn't like you say. You don't sneak in.
Well, that is.
It's there. We read it.
No, but a lot of the Orthodox and Hasidic people who read Yiddish,
yeah.
don't buy our newspaper, a lot of them, because of, either for whatever reason.
For whatever reason, that's right.
But they'll look online and they'll read it, because it is Jewish news. And it's not just Jewish news. I mean, we also do investigative reporting. We're on the cutting edge. I mean, it's amazing. Some of the things that we breaking news from the Forward, gets picked up by the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal. They take our stories.
But Alan,
Yes.
was it just the writers?
Right.
Besides the news, we gave them stories.
Right. And we still do stories. Even the stories we write, they're more like about we have a different type of way of telling that story. Whether it's stories about Trump, stories about Israel, stories about Obama, whatever it is.
That's now.
It's the writers. In the past, we had Isaac Bashevis Singer as one of our writers.
The best in the world.
Right.
And again, quite a few of them, Alan. And they kept on writing.
Right.
They kept on writing. And my parents would be Mom and Pop,
Right.
would be talking about them.
Yeah.
And in other words, it gave a conversation to people
Right.
that they may not have had because with the other Jewish papers,
Right.
which are again religious or semi-religious,
Right.
but it's important that the religious people had a paper.
Oh, right, absolutely. And they still do. There's, there's Yiddish newspapers that are being printed in Israel that come here, or online. You could do it online. But, I guess with our family, it was a little different, though, right? Between Louis, your father, he came home one day, you told me this story, and there was a different newspaper in his back pocket one day.
I'll never forget.
And, the Forward, the Forward is a great newspaper, and I think it's much more progressive now than it might have been in the past, because we really are cutting edge as far as I'm concerned at this point. But there was even some more cutting edge newspapers in the past, and one of them your father, Louis, had in his back pocket. What was that called?
The Freiheit.
Now, what does Freiheit mean in Yiddish?
Freedom.
Freedom.
But all right, even though I'll never forget when he comes home, a poor guy is tired.
Right.
Mom, Bubby would have food for him, and in that back pocket, right, and I have to tell you something about that back pocket, Alan. It was unbelievable. My brother, we had 3 sons.
Right.
We talked about it, the twin brothers and myself.
Right.
And one day, one of my twin brothers became one of the most unbelievable person in the world for cancer research.
Right. He was one of the first. Just to rehash, he was one of the first members of the Sloan Kettering Institute. He was chairman of the biochemistry department at Cornell Medical School. Tons of things. He won awards.
Except again, even though we said it before, he wasn't. He made it.
No, he's one of the original members of the Sloan Kettering.
Of the building of the.
Right. He was one of the original members of the Sloan Kettering Institute.
Of the Sloan Kettering.
I know. He was one of the 28 people that made the Sloan Kettering Institute. It started the Sloan Kettering Institute.
That started.
Right.
When you think of it, it's unbelievable.
And now it's like the cancer research hospital in the world.
No, but just imagine, from us.
Right. From a guy from the shirt ironer's son.
Yes.
Like Louis, my grandfather was a shirt ironer.
That's right.
And he didn't have 2 dimes.
Right.
But yet, between my father and him, they helped Aaron, his kid brother,
and
become
I always say this about my father.
a big scientist.
He worked in the bed industry.
Right.
He was like you say, the shirt ironer. A person who couldn't make a penny more than he made as his highest salary.
Right.
In other words, he couldn't go higher.
Right.
He had to have an iron in his hand.
Right.
He had to do the work, and at the end, he would get paid for. And once you do that, there comes a plateau. You can't even lift up a sleeve to do something else.
Well, he was a worker. Your father was a worker.
Yes, he was a worker. He was a good one.
He was a union worker.
And he was, I was going to say, and he was a union man.
That's it.
And like you say, Now, we don't even think about these things anymore. But years ago, to be in the union, to be in something else, to sit down with the workers and the people who represent somebody else, and you're coming to a price. How much will it cost? How much will they give you to finish a shirt?
Right.
How much will they get?
The negotiations, right?
That's the beauty. That's the word. Alan, the negotiations, Alan, and you would think that
Yeah.
the owners would be in a stronger position than the workers. No.
Have a sip. So we're talking about negotiations right now. Our organization is in the middle of labor negotiations with the News Guild, which is the same newspaper guild. It used to be called the Newspaper Guild, but now it's called the News Guild. And it's the same union that the New York Times and every newspaper in New York that's a union shop is part of this guild. And they're a tough crowd. I'm on management. The son and grandson of a union people. I'm in management, and it's a weird situation to be in management when you come from a union background. You know what I mean? And I'm still in the union. I'm in the Screen Actors Guild, so that's a union too. But it's weird to be sitting on the management side.
So
it goes against the grain.
But you have to find time for one, and the same time for the other.
Right.
And you find time for it, Alan, because you realize something else. You want to get the best for your workers.
Right.
You want the paper's doing a good job of it. You want the paper to get the best they can get for its use of the advertisements and the writing.
Right. We want everybody. Number one, we want the best newspaper that could possibly, or the best both newspaper and magazine that can be published. We want the best articles. And we have very good writers. The number one thing we really want is circulation. See, I was talking to you about this. It's a Jewish newspaper. And, I was just checking how many Jewish people there were in the world.
No, Alan.
And I was quizzing you. You had no idea. But, you look online and it's like a little bit over 14 million Jewish people in the world. And there's over 4 billion, I guess, people in the world. So there's very few Jewish people. A little less than half are in the United States. Somewhere between 5 and 6 million Jewish people are in the United States. Something like that. Maybe it's 6 million. And for us to really do well, we have to capture most of those people. And it's tough. Not everyone's interested in Yiddish newspapers or Jewish newspapers.
I was going to say something. Wait. I thought I'd just because when did English come into the Jewish?
I don't know. But even with English, there's a lot of people, there's so many choices of how you're going to get your news. And trying to, and really, forward is like your grandfather's. I mean, people are going to say, the forward is how your grandparents got their news, not how you're going to get your news, or your great-grandparents. So what we're trying to do now is really change we're changing the look, we're changing even, we're trying to widen the net. So more people can see the fact that we're really investigative reporters, going out after all these, and we're going after the tough stories internationally. We have people all over the world that give that information to us. But primarily, I think our target audience is, our original target audience was Jewish people, but now we're trying to widen the net.
So quite another different question. At that time, when I first started, and it became English and everything, when did they first start, or didn't they, to Europe, send the forward was, people in Europe might have wanted to get a copy.
I know, I don't know when it started, but we do have international, not much, but we do send, we have people in Canada, we have people in Europe.
Oh, no, you said the word international.
Well, we have international subscribers, but not enough. And the other thing is, the interesting thing about international subscribers is that getting the newspaper to them costs almost as much as what we get out of it. But we're a not-for-profit. We're a 501c3. So one of our things is that we're not gonna make it there just on subscription and ads alone. We actually are now looking for major donors, and we're trying to go out there and which every not-for-profit is trying to do. But we're trying to cultivate, we're trying to go to the grandchildren of the people that we served and say we're still here, you know, and support us, because when we're gone, there's not going to be any, the forward won't be there anymore. Your voice won't be there. So what we have to do is really reach out to people who are our relatives and make new friends. That's basically it.
And yet, they had the religious paper, The Day,
Right.
and they had the Morning Journal.
Uh-huh.
And me, I was with the Freiheit
Right.
and with the Forward.
Right.
Definitely the Forward and with the Freiheit.
Right.
And who do I get in to marry?
I know.
One of the most religious people in the world.
And from a conservative background.
That's right.
Right.
And another,
Mom.
and not only that, but still, we would give the paper. My father, to his, wait, what do they call my father and her father?
I know the Yiddish word. What does it go? It's a, oh God, I forgot the Yiddish word.
All right.
I know what you're talking about.
You
The
know what
in-laws.
and
In Yiddish.
he Alan.
Yeah.
He never bought it himself.
Right.
But
Oh,
Alan.
he liked the Freiheit.
Yeah, I mean,
But he
and
would like the Freiheit was something, especially during the 50s and 60s. That's, you know, if you got the Freiheit, you know, the McCarthy's goons would be looking for you, because that was a mark of being a communist.
No, besides McCarthy, there was Father Coughlin.
Right.
Father Coughlin was in New York,
Right.
and I'll never forget, you know, believe it or not, let's talk about Father Coughlin, right?
Okay.
And then how maybe something, the way it's going on with Trump or something, he was a powerful man, Father Coughlin. He had a pulpit, and he did everything. And one day, they had a meeting in Madison Square Garden.
Right.
Really. They filled it up. They filled up with Madison Square Garden, and there was almost a riot. Why? Because he was ranting against the Jews, and there was but one of the people protecting him was a Jewish cop.
Right.
And that's all they were thinking about, to get that Jewish cop, but it didn't happen.
Right.
But Alan, we lived through.
In unbelievable times. And they're even crazy, you know, like the thing is, it seemed for a while it wasn't so crazy until recently, but there was, I mean, I was thinking about it, you know, like the 60s, I mean, that was obviously a turning point, but the 50s, I mean, but even in the 60s it was bad, but the 50s, just all the anti-Semitism and the association of Jews to communists and all this other thing, you know, it was a rough time.
No,
it was a rough time.
And there was, I think, something of pre-World
Yes.
War II. That's when, again,
The rise of the Nazis?
there had to be, I forgot,
Yeah.
but there had to be this news coming from Russia and from the rest of them, and with England, and they were trying to show this is bad or this is bad. Nothing about anything, this is good or this is against us and this is against. But we lived through it, Alan, and it's remarkable. No, really.
Right. I remember I was at the Pete Seeger concert for his 90th birthday, I think it was, at Madison Square Garden, and I called you up on the phone, and you had the phone next to your ear, and he was singing the songs that we used to love, and basically, like Bruce Springsteen came on stage, and he was the one who actually introduced Pete Seeger to come on stage, and he says, you know, Pete, you outlived all the bastards. That's what he said, you know, and it's true. I mean, these people. He was brought up on charges for the House of. I think he went to jail. Pete Seeger, you know.
All of them. Why? Again, because they were the so-called world liberal.
Well, no, they were talking not liberal. They were talking communist. I mean, that was it.
No, but even with the liberal.
Really?
Even with, again, yes, but it was again.
Right. I mean, Pete Seeger.
It was a rough time.
It was a rough time, and the interesting thing was, I think the Forward in an organization called the Workmen's Circle, which I used to work for, they were affiliated, and I know because I used to work at the Workmen's Circle. Now I work at the Forward, 17 years later. The Workmen's Circle and the Forward, I'm not sure about the Forward, but the Workmen's Circle was so anti-communist that they believed they weren't against the war in Vietnam because they were so anti-communist, because of what what Stalin had done to the Jews, and that was their. But they were so conservative.
I'm surprised that
Yes.
I'm the one who didn't. Again, it's I lived with that.
Right.
Now with the I have a thank you.
Yes.
You made me think of unbelievable thing, the workman's circle.
Yes.
The workman's circle has something to do with insurance.
Right. It's called a fraternal organization. It's a 501c8, which is a mutual. It's like a fraternal organization has, like, they give you it's an insurance company, and then they have other activities.
That's it. They had death benefits.
Right. Cemeteries, all this stuff.
Cemeteries.
Right.
And
a camp.
We belonged to the workman's circle.
Your father did.
Naturally, my father did, and he would take me to meetings,
Right.
and it's the first time I ever heard, again, the certain things that you don't read about, and the workman's circle we're talking about, and but the comradeship, the friends, and the workman's circle, believe it or not, was tremendous.
Right.
That
It was a big organization.
They were, again, that's your. They lived together. They talked together. They made sure they had the workman's circle.
Right.
There's a circle with the world and everything else. And they had Jews.
Right.
They had other people too. But
it was really set up because Jewish people came to the United States and they couldn't get insurance. So they set up this mutual aid society. That's what it was called. And basically, having a large number of people, they could self-insure and create an insurance company, and that's what they did.
we were insured.
Right.
We were always. I mean, one thing about us, we were union people. We believed in insurance. We believed in going for the children to go to school.
Right.
I think we were brought up okay.
Right.
And
everybody from the family went to, the next generation, the generation after that, everyone followed in those footsteps and have the same beliefs.
We were the foundation.
Right.
And Alan, just thinking about it, my father, that little man.
He was little. He was skinny and little, but boy, he used to break people's arms across the picket line. Right?
He was, later on, Alan.
Yes.
Wait, I have to tell you this.
Okay.
I belong now in a Cathay House.
Right, which is an assisted living facility.
And for the senior citizen.
Right.
And we listen to lectures, and we have, believe it or not, women rabbis come in there. And this rabbi said, I have to ask you people a question. How many people had, not cowboys, these people who, what did I want to say? I hope it comes back to me.
Yeah.
How many people had children who became gangsters?
All right, you've mentioned this.
We mentioned it.
You mentioned this.
But again, just the idea of asking that question again, it's come up. It's coming. How many people had gangsters?
Right. There were a lot. I mean,
and again, why? The young people, how they can make a living.
Right, and that's the way it is nowadays too. I mean, you look at the people in the lowest strata of the economic situation.
That's right.
The only way you can, and there's like hopelessness. How do you break out of it? You can't. I mean, it's a situation that's.
No, I think there had to be a time that they did break it.
Well, they did. They did, obviously, but the thing is, I think that aspect of it hastens it a little bit. Gets it going a little bit quicker by going to crime. Because you think you're going to get out of it quicker.
But no. When she asked how many people had gangsters, almost everybody.
Right.
Again, why did they raise their hands? Because she used the expression gangsters.
Right.
That the parents never taught us, the family never looked at them as gangsters. Right. They looked at them as people.
Right. Like even my mother's parents used to make bathtub gin, whatever. They used to, I mean, that was one of the things that Isaac did, What can I say? If I remember correctly, Mommy would say that in her carriage, there would be bottles of booze.
Alan,
That's
boy,
how they would.
you're going back a long.
That's what Mom used to say. But one thing is that they were resourceful. That one way or another, they weren't gonna. At least where we come from, one way or another, we were able to lift ourselves out of the situation. I mean, my grandparents on both sides, your parents and my mother's parents, came from Europe and Russia, right? I mean, they came to this country with nothing, and they were able to look where we are now.
Alan, you'd be surprised. They came with nothing.
Right.
Because you actually saw pictures at that time.
Right.
They called out, how did they come here in steerage?
Yeah.
You ever hear the expression
Right.
in steerage? When you
The
see
worst
those-
class.
The worst, and you actually see the boats
Right.
with these kind of,
With tons of people all over the place.
But-
yes.
they were happy.
Oh, to get to the United States.
Or not happy, they weren't sad.
Right.
They were
And
leaving.
how about when they tried to leave Europe during World War II and they said, no, you got to go back?
Oh, Alan,
So
I don't
that's
want to even talk about that.
And how many people got killed because
Right.
the United States wouldn't take the Jewish
But I
people
just
from?
say something else about that.
Yeah.
Where did they come to? New York.
That's it.
They went and they docked downtown,
And Roosevelt wouldn't let them in.
and they won't let them in. And
Unbelievable.
all they had to do, all right, even to break a leg, I mean, you could see them looking out the window.
Talk about harsh immigration policies. I mean, give me a
No,
break.
all they had to do was to jump out,
Right.
and once they're there, they were declared almost a citizen because they were in the United States.
But you ever wonder, because I was, again, I saw today, and I've seen it before, that there's 14 million Jewish people in the United States. 6 million were killed, by Hitler. I wonder how many more people there would have been. I mean, just the children of the children of the children, if Hitler didn't have his way with them. It's unbelievable.
Alan, so the big deal. Is it better now? It has to be better now, huh?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we're in tough shape now, especially with immigration issues.
I know. Look, meaning of only one thing. At that time, the Jews were killed at a mass.
Right.
Now they're doing it singularly, but again, it's bad.
Right.
But again, that's gonna.
Yeah, and the same people are in power, and it's everything is nothing's changed really.
Except one thing I like your expression. Svet kimmer sight.
Yeah, and that means there will come a time, and unfortunately, the time has come, Pop, because there's only one thing left to say. That's a wrap. Good night, folks.